Hi, I'm Janice. Welcome to my channel. I've talked quite a bit in my previous videos about nutrition and following a more natural course for treating MS and other autoimmune conditions. So I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit about what I'm using and what I'm trying, and I would love to hear from you guys too and find out what you're using and what's working for you and what you found didn't work for you. So I should probably go back to the beginning and say that pretty early on in my life as a child, I ended up becoming quite the sugar addict, as many of us kids did growing up, well, decades ago now. And so I already had chronic fatigue as a child. It was undiagnosed, of course, back then, but I knew I was always tired. I always needed a nap. I was very unhappy when I couldn't have a nap. And of course, going to school and just being the life of a kid, they were not really an option very often. So I just was always tired and just not as energetic as other kids. And so I lived on sugar to keep me going. And I did try caffeine a bit when I was into my late teens, early 20s, but what I found is that I can't tolerate it. It's very bad for my nervous system. It messes with my heart rate and my heart rhythm, and also gives me migraines. So caffeine is a big no. So I've been off caffeine for decades now. But I did continue with the sugar for quite a while because it was the only thing I had that would give me even a tiny little boost of energy. So that was not a good thing. It was really bad for me, health-wise, terrible. And looking back, my goodness, how much sugar I had. But then eventually I started the Atkins diet when it was really popular, kind of the first time around. And I found it hugely helpful. I lost a lot of weight, which was awesome. And I felt great. And I'd found at the time some multivitamin powder that I was mixing in with my Atkins shake. And it gave me a boost of energy that was amazing. It actually almost made me dizzy. It was so powerful. And I wish I could find that again, but I don't live in the United States anymore. I was there at the time going to school, and it was great, but I don't think there's any such thing like that particular one that I had here. So I don't do a multivitamin now, but what I do is a whole mix of vitamins. I have a lot of different supplements that I take that would kind of be the equivalent. And the primary one being, of course, B complex, B12, super important. And I've mentioned that in another video. I talk about sublingual B12. It's super important. So from there, with Atkins, I kind of stayed with the low carb thing for a few years, and it was useful, but in the end, I kind of got tired of it, and I went back to doing sugar again because my energy levels were still not great. And of course, once I was back in Canada, I didn't even have access to the same supplements as I did. So, and it was really hard to get Atkins products here too, so that didn't help. And from there, I ended up kind of trying different things. Sometimes I'd go low carb again. Sometimes I would go back to sort of my previous diet, which was not terribly healthy. And then eventually after trying different things and getting tired of things and things not working, and of course my energy levels are continuing to get worse and worse over the years. Then when I was diagnosed with MS, that was right at the beginning of the excitement about the Walls protocol. So of course, one of the first things I did was watch Terry Wall's TED Talk video and got really excited about that. I also had a book that was the very first thing that we bought. My husband and I were looking online, what do I do? What kind of diet do I do here? And the first thing that you would see everywhere at that point was the MS diet, the Swank diet. And it sounded promising. The testimonials were amazing. So we bought a new copy, which is still sitting on my bookshelf, brand new, unused, many, many years later. And when I read it and I went through and I looked at the recipes and the diet that they wanted you on, I realized I couldn't do it because I actually am allergic to too many of the foods on that diet. It wasn't going to work for me. And I knew that it would make me hungry all the time because it's a lower fat, higher carb kind of diet. And I know for me that I do better on a lower carb kind of diet. So as I learned about Terry Walls and her journey and the paleo style diet, which definitely would be something that is more workable for me as far as just having the energy and feeling full basically is a big thing, and not taking things like not having to have yogurt and being able to cut out eggs, although she wasn't cutting out eggs or dairy at that point. I think she does now. They have different levels of the diet now as far as I understand. So I followed it. I did the 9 cups of vegetables and stuffed myself with those. I even cooked organ meat, which I hate, but I did it. And then of course had meat, tried to do everything as organic as I could. It's really, really hard to get organic anything where I live. So that made it more of a challenge, but I did what I could. And even a friend who had her own garden was actually growing vegetables and giving them to me every week, which was super sweet through the warmer months. So I really put a lot into it, and I worked really hard at it. And I didn't notice any specific improvements at that time, but it was still like I knew it was kind of going to be a longer course. There wasn't going to be any quick fixes or anything like that. So from there, I've learned different things to take. CoQ10, super important for your heart health, your vascular system, and there may or may not be a vascular relation to what happens with MS. So it's just a good idea to do anyway. So I take that. Of course, I am on vitamin C, which some people say great, some people say no, don't do that. But I am, and I think it's useful, so that's what I'm doing right now. I take cranberry pills every day because with MS, UTIs are an ongoing problem, so they do help with that, I think. And I also have D-mannose available in case I do feel like I've got a UTI coming on, and it's super helpful as well. I have a friend who can't even take antibiotics at all, and she gets UTIs, and the D-mannose does the job for her every time, and that's really something. So it's expensive, but it's worth having on hand and using when you need it. It's a very useful supplement to have. I've mentioned in other videos, I do take magnesium. Right now I'm taking 4 different kinds. So L-threonate is one that I've started taking more recently. It is expensive, but it's one that they believe has tested to cross the blood-brain barrier. So that is something that appeals to me, of course, because I want to do everything I can to help my brain. And I'm not the kind of person who is very susceptible to the placebo effect. I'm maybe just a little bit too much of a realist, I guess. So I didn't really expect anything. But after a week of being on the L-threonate, I did notice that my brain was feeling less foggy. And I hadn't even thought to kind of examine that. But one day I just realized, hey, yeah, I am actually thinking more clearly now. That's great. So I'm still paying the big bucks to keep trying that for longer, as long as I can. And I have previously for a long time been taking a combination of magnesium malate and oxide. And I had previously been taking magnesium citrate, which is, it can be quite helpful for constipation. And I'll just say that's another fun MS issue. And it was helpful for that, but you don't really absorb. The reason it works so well is because you're not absorbing that much magnesium. So it kind of irritates your guts instead. So I kind of cut out the citrate and moved towards the L-threonate instead, and also added bisglycinate, which I take before bed. As per the recommendation of a friend, she suggested that I had already been taking inositol with my other supplements, but my friend suggested that I should take it right before bed. So I've been doing that too. I don't know if for sure it's making a huge difference for my sleep, but it's not a bad idea. So I'm kind of gotten into that habit, that protocol. I do take something called Sativex, and I hadn't taken it for a few years, but I decided to go ahead and start doing it again because I have some issues with my muscles that are not related to MS, but since I have MS, I'm allowed to take Sativex. Sativex is actually a cannabis product. It's a prescription product out of the UK that is almost half and half CBD and THC, so it doesn't, as long as you don't go crazy with it and take tons, then you don't have to worry about feeling high, which is great because I'm not one of those people who likes feeling high. I can't stand the feeling. So, and I want to be functional. My goal here is to be as functional as possible. So that seems to be a helpful thing for me to take. And cannabis does have a lot of health benefits as well. So, you know, if I can take it in that form, then that's great. For some reason, cannabis that I have tried before for things like sleep have been less than helpful. It tends to make my heart race. And of course I have gotten stoned on it, which I hated and I never want to do again. That was just a horrible, horrible situation. So I'm kind of thinking that possibly I might have an issue with it, but it might be that I've had a very hard time getting a hold of organic cannabis. And so sadly, cannabis is generally in the mainstream area is grown with a lot of chemicals and pesticides and things. And so I'm thinking that might be what I'm reacting to. And that's why it's been difficult. So I'm not, against using cannabis as long as I can use it in such a way that it doesn't get me high. But I'm also really cautious because I've had some negative experiences with what it can do to my heart rate, and I just don't have a great reaction to it generally. But I can handle the Sativex, so that gives me hope that there might be some options out there in the future, maybe more organic options that I could try if I could afford it, because it's not cheap. So that's a bit of an overview of what I'm taking right now and kind of what my path has been. I think I probably forgot to mention a few things that I'm taking, but that's generally what I'm using right now on a daily basis. And I'm still researching some different things. I want to maybe add iodine back into my diet. I had used it before and I just kind of got out of the habit. So I think I want to try and get that back in there. But I have to also watch too, because I am taking a lot of different things and I want to make sure there's no interactions or contraindications or anything like that. So I'll let you know how it's going as I continue to try new things and get into habits that will hopefully be helpful in the long term. I should say as well that I did go keto right away after the event that happened 6 months ago, because I didn't know if it was a seizure or syncope or what it was. But either way, keto was kind of recommended for both. So I thought, well, that was not very far off of what I've been doing, because I've been in the sort of keto or low carb or paleo range for, the last 10, 11 years now. So it wasn't a big deal for me to go back to keto, and it's been okay, but oddly, I've actually gained weight on it. So I have to kind of re-examine what else I'm doing. And I also want to look into things like cleanses. I haven't done that for quite a while as well. And definitely looking at things like parasite cleanses, which are a little more complicated, and it's tough because there is nobody to really guide me through that. And we don't have any medical professionals local who can really help me with that. I don't think even the naturopath locally does that. So we'll see, but I definitely think it could be a factor. Certainly a lot of people do believe that Lyme could be a very close relation to MS, could be the cause of MS or one of the causes of MS or whatever, I don't know. There's no way for me to find out if I have Lyme, but I think in the end it's probably not a bad idea to just pursue treatment and see what happens and see if I can help some ways, because there may be other bacteria, other viruses, other parasites, any number of things that are causing a number of issues that might be related to my fatigue and inflammation and things like that. And so if I can find ways to get those under control, I don't think it'll ever be perfect. I live in a house that has mold and there's no way to get rid of that mold. I can't get out of this house. This is where I live. So I have to find a way to just work with it basically and cleanse as best I can. And we will see. I'm going to try using some bentonite clay and a number of other things. And when I finally get myself out to the health food store to buy all that stuff that I need, then I'll check back in and let you guys know how it's going, and would love suggestions from you guys for other things that you think will be helpful for me, that you found helpful, and that you feel like you can continue using for the long term. Hopefully isn't crazy expensive too. So thank you very much for following me on my journey, and if you like this kind of content, please do subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up, that everybody asks for. And God bless.